So what I want to talk about today is the idea of influence and talk to you about how you're probably sitting on a gold mine at your organization, and that gold is made up of your expertise and your experts. And so today's session is really focused on how to activate your experts to be the influencers that your market really deserves. And we're going to share a little bit about how we've approached it. Hopefully there's some ideas you can steal and make work for your own organization. But to give you a sense of my background, just so you know that you're listening to someone that really knows a lot about influencer marketing, I wanted to share my very first gig as an influencer marketer. This is me. I'm a middle child in the 1980s. My first gig was getting mom's attention. I had an older brother and two little sisters. So I've been studying influence, how to get influence, how to get attention for a very, very long time. And I didn't know it then when I was wearing that awesome, I'm the one in yellow, so I'm really in there. I'm really trying to get her attention. Learned a lot of lessons that would end up leading to a career in brand marketing. But there were some stops along the way. Like whenever I was in a band, I learned a lot about how to get and keep people's attention. It might look like we're really rocking the show and everybody's really into it. I'm the one that's pointing, but I'm pointing to my sister. So it's not like we had lots of fans. There's a reason I'm at Content Marketing World today and not like Coachella or something even cooler that it's too hip for me to even know about. But I learned a lot about getting attention and influencing people that I would apply to my career later on. And so my band broke up, as they do. I was very VH1, behind the music, storytellers, classic tale, rival guitarists, and we broke up, and I found myself as a freshman at Penn State wondering what I was going to do next. So I tried my hand at writing, being a reporter for the Penn State's Daily Collegian. Again, I'm not trying to brag, but I was the one that broke the story that ranch dressing had become more popular than ketchup on campus. And so, needless to say, I didn't win a Pulitzer Prize or anything like that, and actually, my dog chewed this clip up. So I think he's trying to send me a message, like, I'm ashamed of you, this chapter didn't exist. But in the publishing world, I learned a lot about earning audience attention, influencing them to take action that I would parlay actually into the first serious part of my background, which is my career as a brand marketer. I started out in publishing, working for media companies, and found my way working with a lot of really amazing brands for the first decade of my career, applying the best practices of what media companies do to brand marketers. And sort of this is my background as a series of logos, and really the important thing is 9 years ago, it led to the founding of Revmade, which is the company that I'm the chief strategy officer for and co-founder of. You can see my dog he's a little apprehensive. He's like, this looks so good, so far so good, but he hasn't chewed up the PowerPoint, so here I am today to tell you about how we help organizations activate their expertise to influence their audience toward building their brand. And lucky for you, this is the last part that's about me, so we're going to move right into the meat of the material today, which is behind the scenes of this amazing program, like I said at the beginning, that I'm honored to work on. It's been the honor of my career. It's a consumer health and wellness publication for Northwell Health called The Well. And we've been really lucky to work on this program for about 7 years and have won dozens of awards for our work, including the 3-time Best Content Strategy winner here at the CMAs. And I wanted to take you on a quick tour behind the scenes of how we've done it, and with hopefully stealable lessons that you can apply to your own organization. I'm going to take a pause, take a sip of water, calm my nerves. But it's really because I'm excited to be here and to talk about this project. So you can relate to our audience if you've ever been sitting on the couch and you have a cough that just kind of won't go away. You're sitting there, you're watching Netflix, you're coughing, you decide, what, this thing has been around for like a couple weeks, I better Google this. That's not going to be short experience. So whenever you Google anything, any symptom that you have as a consumer of health and wellness, which we all are as human beings, you get the kind of the rabbit hole of anxiety effect. So I'm coughing. Could my cough be cancer, pneumonia, allergies, acid reflux, heart-related hay fever, asthma, lung cancer, from mold, from bronchitis? What causes excessive coughing? Why am I coughing too much? What are the side effects of coughing too much? Can coughing too much damage your throat? The idea is that it's not serving you, it's actually, and this is what the internet specializes in, it's monetizing your anxiety. The WebMDs of the world are giving you 30-page slideshows that makes your symptoms seem like, oh my gosh, this could be the worst case scenario ever. You have influencers who are selling you special elixirs that are homemade that might be able to kind of woo-woo health approach solve your problems outside of what the medical experts might say. You have all sorts of different influencers, publications, charlatans that are trying to monetize the fact that you're looking for help online. And that's where our audience was. Meanwhile, and this is from researchers, this isn't even from my own experience, but we all experience in our own lives, nothing goes viral quite like misinformation. Misinformation is one of the fastest spreading types of content. That's not a piece of advice, it's just a fact of life that we as content marketers have to deal with, is that misinformation is prevalent. And it's probably because at the very beginning of the internet, there was this excitement in the room where anyone can give advice, and then they did. So you can go out and find forums, a lot of well-meaning advice, a lot of people who might be able to solve your problem the way that they did it at home. But I think by now, that exclamation point has kind of turned into a question mark. It's like, wait, anyone can give advice? So that's the world that we're living in, and where it leads us is to what we call the stress gap. The stress gap is there's more advice than ever before, but there's also more stress than ever before. So in the world of health and wellness, it's like, okay, so who can be the beacon of light on the hill? Who can help out? Well, you probably look to hospital systems. But there's a lot of really great hospital systems creating content marketing and publications to help solve problems for their patients. But really, most of them fall into two camps. One is overly clinical, so super button up, white jacket, very official, very dry, the science, clinical health, the kind of thing that if you actually are experiencing a symptom just makes you more scared and more overwhelmed, and it's not very accessible. The other side is it's too sanitized. Like they're trying to put a smiling face on something that's really serious or really detrimental, really threatening to your health. The best way I've ever heard it described is that nobody smiles during a colonoscopy. But yeah, if you look at healthcare stock photos and what a lot of systems are putting out there, you see that there are a lot of smiling faces where in reality there probably wouldn't be a whole lot of smiles. So all jokes aside, where does that leave patients? Where does that leave people, the people that Northwell Health is trying to serve in their hospital system? It leaves them alone in their darkest moments. They're Googling things at 4 in the morning and they're going down that rabbit hole of anxiety. They're hearing things from influencers that maybe they should try, but maybe it's junk science and they're just not sure. So in their darkest, most vulnerable moments, they're left alone. And then in their everyday lives, they're kind of rudderless. They're kind of on their own too. They don't really have a co-pilot or partner that helps them to manage their own health and wellness because the information landscape is trying to monetize their anxiety. It's trying to sell them a product, trying to sell them a subscription, trying to sell them as a page view to an advertiser. So Ramon Soto, the CMO at Northwell Health, prior to the launch of this program, had a quote that was kind of became our mandate for developing the original strategy. He saw this as a problem that needed to be solved, and he believed that Northwell could solve the problem. And the idea was we need to develop a relationship with people before the health event. We actually need to be their trusting partner before they need to come and transact with a hospital system. There's a huge opportunity for us to be that beacon of light on the hill, that trusted advisor, that co-pilot through all sorts of moments of them managing their health and wellness. So really want to emphasize that point. So what we did is we zoomed out and we looked at Northwell and we realized they have so much good stuff to work with. 85,000 people work for Northwell Health in all sorts of different capacities, but there's a lot of people who are saving the day, saving lives, helping people out on a day-to-day basis. They help 2 million of those people per year. Actually, one of the craziest things is they deliver 30,000 babies a year. So that means 17 minutes into this presentation and then 17 minutes later, 2 more babies will be born at Northwell Health. But a lot of this expertise is evaporating in one-to-one interactions between the patient and the provider. They have so much expertise, so much experience, so much intuition, so much gut instinct, so much help that literally if you go to Northwell Health, you're going to get the best care in the world. But it was staying in their ecosystem. So the question was, how can we take the expertise that is actually driving the care in real life and use it as the core currency of our content marketing? How could we use this incredible force for good? And more to the point, how could we make our experts be the actual answer for those 4 a.m. Google searches? The voice of reason on social media, which badly needs it. And truly the community influencers that our community deserves, that the internet deserves. So how could we be a force of good by tapping into our own expertise? And that's where this idea really came from. As the program has evolved and we've learned more by serving the patients in the community, this really has become our rallying cry. Our experts at Northwell Health are the influencers that the internet deserves. The Well by Northwell, which I'm going to explain in just a minute, scales expertise to reach people in moments of need with compassion, care, and connection. Taking all that good stuff that patients actually engage with and on a day-to-day basis when they're interacting with the system, building from the experts who make up this amazing system, and tapping into that, into content that can then influence the community in a way that benefits them and benefits the brand, builds the brand purpose. So we started by saying, okay, what are the opportunities that exist for Northwell expertise to kind of respond to and react to? When are the experts actually needed? And we studied the audience, and what we found is that there were a few different pillars, like kind of moments that happen that you can relate to. Some of them are shoulds, like kind of the conventional wisdom in the back of your head. I should drink more water. I should walk more. I should probably drink less. As a side note, content marketing world is your cheat day, so you don't have to drink less while you're here. There's also the routines, plan moments. I just turned 40. Do I need to get a prostate exam? Based on my history, I probably do. New mammogram guidelines came out. Do I need to get a mammogram? I probably don't. But there's people that, I thought that was better whenever I wrote it as a joke. It was not that good. But yeah, so these milestones are moments where people are like, what should I do at this point in my life? What do the experts say? And they need clear guidance from an actual expert. Then there's also like the obsessions, the water cooler moments, what people are talking about on TikTok. For instance, recent TikTok trend, if anybody heard this, where you make potato juice as an alternative to antibiotics for strep throat. Sounds like I'm making it up. That was a real one that people were talking about. Or covering your body in beer instead of sunscreen for sun protection. There's like real stuff happening on TikTok that's influencing how people are behaving in their day-to-day lives. And that's an opportunity, right, for us to be relevant to them. And then there's the extreme moments, the life-changing events, the diagnosis of a difficult condition for yourself, or even worse, for your spouse or your children or a loved one. And then there's this spiraling effect of, oh my gosh, this is going to change everything. We exist to catch people before they fall into that spiral. So whether it's the shoulds in the back of your head, the routines, which are natural milestones that you go through just living your life, the obsessions that are driving the pop culture conversation, or the extreme life-changing events, the diagnoses that change everything for you, there was an opportunity for us to share our expertise, bring people from that dark moment into the light. So we look around, find out. So we said, okay, when people are looking for this information, whenever they are going through one of these moments, where are they going and what are they finding? So that brought us to search data. What topics are interesting our audience? Who's ranking for those topics? What does the keyword supply and demand economy look like? And what are the opportunities for us to compete there? The media diet analysis, reverse engineering the media habits of your audience and saying, okay, these are the influential publications, these are the influential influencers, these are the podcasts, these are the YouTube channels, these are the TikTok accounts, these are the publications they subscribe to. What are they learning there, and what can we learn about them about how to better communicate with them? And then the social netnography. Netnography is one of my favorite words because it sounds really formal and official, but it really means, what are people saying on Reddit? What are people saying on TikTok in the comment section? There's a very specific, hyper-specific forum for every health and wellness condition that's out there, and those are really interesting data points to mine and to understand and to synthesize and say, wow, this is the conversation, we should actually do something about that. And all of that culminates into the Well, and I'm going to walk through more specifically how we activate individual experts to solve for those moments of need. But I wanted to share with you just the Well. It's this idea of a publication that features Northwell experts that, amid the flood of overwhelming and often unreliable information, Northwell Health is committed to being a trusted and caring partner. The Well offers personalized content that reduces stress, sparks joy, and helps people navigate their healthcare journey with confidence. I was going to paraphrase, but our editor-in-chief wrote that, and I wanted to make sure I got all of her words correct. But I'll just show you in a video instead, because there's nothing like seeing to believe. the bass drops. So the well, it's our way to connect experts with the audiences that need them. And the way that we do that is actually by diving deeper. I talked about the reverse engineering a media diet, seeing what's trending on TikTok, what influencers are doing that's really resonating with our audience. We use that as data points to create what we call content formats. So the idea of a content format is a mechanism to make your expertise more pop culturally relevant to the audience that you're trying to serve. We're obviously talking about healthcare, but it works in every single niche. Understanding how you can package your information that makes your organization special in a way that solves the problems and addresses the needs of your audience. So some of the ones that we started out with, like Dear Doctor, an advice column with rotating experts. So it wasn't necessarily like our Dear Abby or Ask Carolyn. It's this idea of we have hundreds of queries, hundreds of topics that are interesting to our audience, and we have hundreds of experts who could be the advice columnist. So things like, am I drinking too much? A doctor weighs in. That was the big one during COVID, and actually it's been a big one since the invention of alcohol. So just answering in an advice column style the questions that people have about their own health. But it's not just clinical stuff, it's also emotional stuff, like, my husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's. How is this going to change our relationship now that I'm his caregiver and his spouse? Helping people to navigate that in a way that is coming from an expert in a format that is packaged to be more appealing to them culturally. What I wish you knew, sort of like giving an expert an open mic and saying, address a myth, address a misconception, address misinformation, and tell people what you really want to know, what they really should know. What's something that you're always telling your patients, and what's that aha moment that they have? Can we capture that and share that with the world? Our audience data indicated that a lot of women were putting off getting a mammogram because they heard that they were painful. It's a really bad experience. And one thing we know about breast cancer is that early detection is the #1 way to actually save lives when it comes to breast cancer. But women in our community weren't getting mammograms because of that anxiety. So we had someone write, hate mammograms, read this. And it's actually something that's given out at the OBGYN office and is published to the site to help people overcome their fear of getting a mammogram. So open mic style works for those sorts of things, but it also works for, hey, I know you heard about potato juice as an antibiotic alternative on TikTok. Here's why you probably shouldn't do that. Imagine any TikTok trend, the Tide Pod Challenge, anything that kids are doing that parents should be worried about, any misinformation that's seeping out into the TikTok ether that people are acting on. Let's address that. What I wish you knew about this, what a nutritionist wishes you knew about added sugars. So we can get clinical and basic, but we can also get emotional and spiritual and deep. It's worth pointing out, that is actually our editor-in-chief. She took it personally that people were smiling in colonoscopy photos, and she lives the brand, and she sets the tone for all the content that we create. She actually documented her own colonoscopy, so people could see what it was actually like from the prep to the procedure to the post-procedure recovery. So that this idea of for any interaction you might have with the hospital system, no matter what it is, even if you're going in for something little or something life-changing, there's anxiety. If we can capture and show people, here's what it's really like to interact with the system and the experts, that's going to quell that anxiety, and that's going to bring them closer in to actually get something done that's going to help their health and their lives. And then day in the life. One of the big things that we found when we're studying the audience is there's this disconnect between the patient and the provider. The provider is seen as this logo in the sky, this tightly buttoned white jacket. Well, what if we could show the human side of these people who are actually going to be delivering care? So I talked about, actually I think that baby was just born. So I talked about Dr. Stephanie McNally doing a photo essay of her sort of behind the scenes, giving the audience access to how she approaches her day, how she delivers care on a day-to-day basis. And by the way, if you think your day is long as a marketer, her day is extremely long as an OBGYN who's really delivering babies and helping women on all sorts of issues throughout her day. And these portraits can humanize the experts, and you see that we're starting to build a little bit of connection directly from the expert to the patient, to the person in the community. So just to pause on formats for a second, it's one of those ideas that seems like it makes sense and everybody kind of does this, but I think that the bedrock of our entire program, if it's about connecting experts with the audience, formats are the conduit in which makes that happen. So those formats, and I'll talk through some of them as we show how we've evolved into the social space, are all about packaging your brand's expertise in a way that's resonant and pop culturally relevant for your audience. And you learn that by studying what is resonant with them outside of what your brand is doing. Designed for relevance, of course, but also performance. While it is part of our brand mission to solve problems and build a relationship before the health event, we also want to drive people in to engage with our brand, to book an appointment, to join an email subscriber list, to take a health risk assessment. So it's all about meeting them in that moment of need, giving them information, and then offering them a next step. And we can measure that so we can see how effective or efficient our content is. It also gets experts excited to collaborate. A lot of times PR is going to say, hey, we need a quote on this topic. They're like, oh, okay, and then they get very formal and stiff, and they say, here's my official stance on that, and they're referencing their clinical information, and they're just kind of speaking in PR speak. It's not that exciting, it kind of feels like a drag. Or it's, hey, we need a quote on this, we need you to weigh in on this brochure, this piece of marketing collateral. Showing them that you're creating, and more importantly, that what you're creating is resonating with the audience, showing them that you're creating something highly engaging with that audience that's kind of fun to participate in is a great way to get experts to take your calls, take your emails, and take you up on the idea of collaborating to create content. And then finally, this last one's gonna be really important as I show how kind of we evolve to these different channels. It allows you to repurpose content to meet needs of different channels. It gives you a really great mechanism and organizing principle and structure for planning so that you have an audience data point, you have an expert that's gonna respond to it, and you have a consistent, subscribable, franchisable content stream like an advice column, or like many other content forms that we'll talk about, that people can really engage with and binge or habitually follow. So we talk a lot about the front-end presence of them, like how it looks in the market, but really the beauty of formats is the behind-the-scenes planning, getting everyone on the same page, following a template, but allowing for deviations, allowing for the advent of new formats. One thing I'll tell you about The Well is, after 7 or 8 years of doing it, we're not doing the exact same thing we were doing in year one. We're evolving as the audience is teaching us what they want and what they want to respond to and where. So one of the core, I'd say the primary strategic focus of our team, and our team is strategists. They're up there. They're a little blurry. I think Jenna had to have lunch during that, so that's why she's not there. She's not anyway. Get out of your own head, man. So it's like operations people, strategists, social content creators, writers, editors, looking at this audience data against different topics that matter to the health system and matter to our audience, and determining really how do we map the expertise we have to the needs our audience is illustrating to us. So we look at the audience data to find the right expert, the best format that we can bring their expertise to life in response to that audience data. We create content with the experts that really lets them shine and lets them be relevant in ways that maybe traditional methods don't. We get it ready for channel delivery, talking about like, is this good for Instagram? Is this better for TikTok? Is this better as an article, or is it better as a swipe through? Or is it actually multi-purposable to be in each one of those different channels, and how would that look? And then what is the optimal result we're gonna drive? So every piece of content is based on an audience interest, includes an expert that's responding to it, fits into a format that we can then publish out into the different channels where our audience is spending time. So it's really an operating system of relevance. That's the way that we talk about it. I need to work on deep breathing because I feel like I'm running a marathon right now, but I'm just talking about marketing. Oh, thank you. My self-esteem coach is here. Oh, thanks for coming. I need that. That's what I Google at 4 a.m. But really bringing it all together, it's like, think of it as not a platform or as an end result, but a process that gets you better and better and better. So your audience data, mining all the available data that you have access to, whether it's search, social, customer feedback, call center data, whatever it may be, matchmaking that audience need with an expert who actually is best positioned to do that. There's somebody who's taking those calls in real life, taking those appointments in real life, solving that problem in real life. How do we get them into the content mix? We invite them to collaborate and do all the hard work so that they just have to show up and shine on signature content formats that are really assets that the brand can become famous for. Map it to the channels that we're gonna see impact on, where we know our audience is spending time, that are part of our ecosystem. And then we monitor and refine the next content planning session that we're doing based on the feedback that we see. Are we reaching people? How many and where? Is the content resonating with them? Is it building trust? Is it building preference? Is it driving content engagement? Those are all the things that we look at in this operating system of relevance. And that's kind of the backbone of the well. And I want to share with you kind of how we've extended it into these channels to evolve to meet the needs of our audience. And so our call to arms recently has been, the past few years, has been responding to this quote: find where they are and meet them there. Let them know that they're not alone. So this is from Joe Leston, who happens to be Deputy CMO at Northwell Health. He's actually our main client's boss. He's a really smart guy, tremendously handsome. He happens to be sitting right over there. And so this was our mandate for how do we evolve this to really be a multi-channel operating system for relevance. How can we take this core idea and be in more places and do it in an efficient and an effective way so that we're getting more mileage out of the budget and more value out of each minute spent with those SMEs, those experts. So you think about it for a second, they're delivering babies. They're helping cancer patients. They are dealing with all sorts of conditions of the human mind, of the human body. Pulling them away to do marketing is a tough thing because their day job is actually saving and changing lives. So how do we incorporate their time, spend as little bit of it as possible, and have as maximum reach and resonance as we can across these channels? So to put it into practice, let's go back to that late night coughing fit. We've all been there, we cough, and maybe it's a cough that's been persistent. You're like, okay, this isn't just from screaming at the TV on like a football Saturday. This isn't from like staying up too late and drinking too much. This is something, maybe there's more wrong here. So that kind of data point is the kind of data point that we plan around. Just to pause on that for a second, there's so many data points out there, and it becomes an activity that revolves around how do we prioritize our limited time and resources to meet each need? What's the best data point for us to respond to with our expertise? So when we prioritize, because if you think about it, there's 8.5 billion Google searches per day. Something like 17% are related to health and wellness. That's a lot. That's a lot of things that you could respond to. And that doesn't account for 100 million YouTube searches, doesn't account for 1 billion TikTok views, 17 million hours spent on Instagram. So there's a lot of audience activity that we have to glean through and prioritize around. And the way that we do that is by saying, does it have the right audience intent? Is this a real need related to health and wellness that an audience is looking for a solution on? Expertise, do we add value? Do we have the right person that can weigh in on this? Or are we feeling like, oh yeah, that's totally true, but we don't know what to do about it either? And then brand, is this right for us? Is this something we want to be associated with? Is this something that we want to be potentially famous for if it does get picked up? And so each one of those data points, talking about coughing and all the different variants of a coughing query and what those could look like, we're really trying to angle in on what's the one where we can have the most impact. And so whenever we talked through this coughing data, just as a specific example, we realized the idea of a lingering cough, yeah, it's annoying, yeah, it could be contagious, but a lot of times it can be a harbinger? Why would you use that word? Harbinger? How do you even say that? Harbinger. Harbinger, thank you. Of a worse condition, of something much more serious that you should not just, do what TikTok says and put honey down your throat or take like a Ricola. It's like you actually need to come in and see an ENT. So we brought an ENT into the mix and basically said, what would you say to people that have a cough that won't go away? Whenever they come in and you're dealing with this issue, what are the kinds of things that you say? So we have a journalist on these Dear Doctors interview the right expert and ghostwrite an advice column in their name. In their name becomes really important because you're connecting with the community on a specific person who exists, who has a button that you can then book an appointment with. It's a person who you might actually meet in real life. But to Google, especially in the tsunami of AI content that's among us, Google is looking for high-value experts who have real authority on the topics that people are searching for. So highlighting your experts, we're going to talk about how it's important for social. It's now more important than ever for search, too. Knowing, hey, this is a real person with a real background and the real permission to weigh in on something like this. So, you do that once and you've helped some people out, and that's great. But the way that you can really achieve the scale of impact is by doing this millions and millions of times. So, Joe, we want to be around for a really long time. We've only done it hundreds so far. But the idea here is that if you really map out all of the different needs that people have, and you have the experts that can respond to it, and you have the content formats like Dear Doctor, an advice column with a rotating guest list of Northwell experts, or Well Informed, which is just an expert talking in first person about a topic and everything you need to know about it, formatted as a list, you really can start to see like, okay, now we have a system for monitoring what people are interested in, for responding to it with the right expert, and for delivering content that engages, delights, and solves a problem. So I was mentioning that, okay, so we're doing that. We have the bedrock of a successful program, but we know that audiences change. I mean, that's one of the truths about marketing, is that it's always changing. I mean, I remember doing Vine strategies at one point a long time ago. Vine's not even a channel anymore. But that's the kind of thing. These channels emerge, audience behaviors kind of shift, and you've got to be ready to respond to it. So the three that we really took focus on in the past year or so are TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. Have you guys heard of those three channels? They're very niche. But obviously, like TikTok is massively influential these days. It's growing so fast. I read a study the other day that said TikTok itself identified that it only takes 36 minutes for someone to become addicted to TikTok. They're really good at capturing engagement and capturing mind share of people. But as very eloquently stated by Vox.com in an analysis, they're also on TikTok a fire hose of health BS. I don't know what BS stands for, but I don't think it's good. But it's really popular with younger generations, and obviously we want to be able to make sure that we're reaching the right people across the generational span, because guess what? If you have a body, you're a health consumer. The next one is YouTube. Second largest search engine, of course, but if you've been on YouTube, you've seen this, but also there was a researcher that came out and recently said this. YouTube emphatically is not a reliable source of medical and health-related information. There's a lot of misinformation on YouTube in particular. And then finally, Instagram. We all know it's not just photos anymore. It's kind of TikTok and Instagram kind of replacing Google for younger generations. But the use case that we saw is that people are going to Instagram to investigate people, places, and things that they might do business with. They're checking out a restaurant on Instagram to see what it's actually like according to photos that people are posting, to get that vibe check. Or they're booking an auto mechanic appointment and they're checking it out on Instagram versus Google search versus other traditional means. And it's also happening in the world of healthcare, where they're trying to figure out, is this a doctor that I actually want to go and like bare myself to literally? I want to know who they are and what they're like before they do that. So to dive in quickly, how we approach TikTok, for instance, and we'll go through each of them, but I won't spend as much time on the second two, just to kind of pace it if you're like, oh my God, this is so long. But it's just a voice in my head. So we look at TikTok, and the first step of any new channel is reading the room, really studying audience norms, behaviors, trending topics, everything like that. What we found is that there are a lot of people producing health and wellness information. The problem is most of them don't have an MD next to their name. A lot of them, and this is one of them, she's actually very good and very well-meaning, but her bio, with 5.8 million likes and almost 200,000 followers, is healing and stuff. Not a doctor, but I think I've seen them all. So she sees that there's an audience need and there's demand for better information as it pertains to health and wellness. She's seen the opportunity to influence that market, but like she said, she's not a doctor. She thinks she's seen them all. She hasn't seen them all. And so that's kind of who's winning in TikTok right now, who's winning influence, who's actually getting people to follow them are people like this. Again, not to besmirch their approach or not to say that they're not adding value, but they aren't medical experts. And as we know, we have medical experts. So there's a lot of people looking for health and wellness information. We should be a voice in that conversation too. So we do the same thing that I talked about with Google search data, which is go through and see what's actually happening related to the topics that matter most to your system, to your organization, to the experts, where they have expertise. So find trending TikToks, find comments that are really illuminating of sort of like the vibe of where consumers are at on a certain topic, and then bring that to the expert. Articles seem like the 1.0. Plenty of experts are like, cool, I can be interviewed or I could participate in an article, but getting on TikTok is really scary. So the way that we do that is to really give them a surround sound, almost like an executive producer type of approach to it, where we say, you're part of our family. We have a briefing call with an expert where we walk through the data, where we're watching TikToks together, where they're saying like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's real. And we're saying, we can't either, that's why we brought it to you. We're making it really easy for them to show up to a shoot and have everything be a production-ready environment for them. But bringing the data, applying some TLC and saying, this is actually going to be really special, but we want you to be yourself. Because I think that's the most important thing, is that people don't necessarily need expertise, they want experts. They want the actual person at the other end of it to be a human being acting human. And so we tell people, you really need to be yourself, because that's what's going to connect and engage. Sure, we're going to respond to audience interest data. Sure, we're going to apply your expertise to trends, but we're going to do it have you heard of edutainment? Like education and entertainment at the same time. More so edu than tainment, but we're going to have a little bit of fun with this, and you can be yourself. We're going to make it easy for you, and we're actually going to surround them with a team that will help them look, feel, act, and engage like an influencer themselves. What's really interesting about bringing audience data to experts is a lot of times if you bring topical data, what do you know about fill in the blank topic? They'll give you a very clinical and expert answer. But if you show them here's a Reddit thread where people are talking about skin conditions, and here's what the top voted comment is, and it's actually wrong, then they launch into what they would say, how they would correct that. And we go, good, we want to capture that for the content that we produce. They start talking like a human because they see it's a human. They're really good with their patients at doing that, but when it comes to marketing collateral, they get formal. So showing them, it's just you talking to this person in the audience who has this interest in this problem. So as an example, skincare. It's, skin cancer is obviously a huge issue, and a lot of people are misinformed about how you can protect yourself from the sun. And sure, I think we've even done a piece on 5 tips for better sun protection. You've probably seen that article online. AI can write it in 33 seconds, pulling from all of these different sources. How can we create something that features original experts in an original way? And so what we did here was, okay, you're the dermatologist, you have a dermatology office, you have your different people that are in that office. Let's tap in, this was trending at the time, to introduce your office team to the tune of the Office theme song. You guys remember The Office, Dunder Mifflin? Who wants to sing it so I don't have to? No, we all remember it. I'm not going to do the Sabre song, even though it's a good song. I don't know. But so what we did here was 5 tips for better sun protection, where we ran around the office and each person got to share their tip as they were introducing it as if they were on the Office TV show. So fun, lighthearted, easy enough to do, and very different than just 5 generic tips about sun protection. And this got picked up a lot because it was fun, it was edutaining, and people engaged with it. 1 minute. Whoa. We do the same thing with Q&A. Mammogram guidelines came out, shoot, 1 minute isn't going to be long enough to play these videos. And we go over the shoulder and say, as if somebody walked into your office, please respond to explain, breast density and why that's an issue and how people need to get checked for that. Explain the new mammogram guidelines, they're very confusing. You see people engaging with the comments, then we use those comments in our content planning to respond to them with the next piece of content. So we have that feedback loop with the audience very, very tight. We take on a lot of get ready with me. A nutritionist does her weekly meal planning. A dermatologist does her skincare routine. Ask an expert anything. We do all of these different types of content formats because that's what plays on the platform, but we package it with our expertise so that we can be that voice, that change that we want to see in the world. With YouTube, there's a lot of how-to search. So we have a Hack Your Health, a how-to series featuring experts that solve problems like, how do I get rid of pink eye? How do I get rid of this cough? And those TikTok videos make for really great YouTube shorts, and we're multi-purposing to get that content another moment in the sun. And then finally, we did for Instagram, I just wanted to bring this up, we call them carousel listicles. It's a carousel swipe through, but a listicle. What we realized was that, and nobody calls it that really, what we realized is the archival content, like those 5 tips, what an expert wants you to know, make really great swipe throughs for Instagram. So we're not reinventing the wheel, we're repurposing what we already have to be effective in a new channel. This is the bummer of the day because I wanted you guys to guess these are all 3 viral videos, all with over 1 million views. Which one do we think did the best? So let's take a mammogram. They're going to play it once. She's asking 2 brain surgeons, is marijuana bad for your brain? And then we have, so which one do we think did the best? That one? Actually, it wasn't. That one got 1 million views, but this Let's Take a Mammogram is almost at 6 million views because utility works because people really need answers to real problems versus a diversion from their day-to-day life. But the props you get on doing something cool like Dr. McNally did are a way to get the experts excited about working with you again. Share the data. There's a new influencer in town. We're working on you. We've got 650,000 likes and 40,000 followers. Not quite there yet. Don't take my word for it. We did a lot of things. This is the final slide. I know that's probably over a minute. I'm sorry. Thank you guys so much. This is the system. Align with audience needs. Provide. Oh yeah, we're gonna clap during it. That was gonna be too weird. That's kind of the system in a nutshell. Oh, and I have to say, follow us on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. Visit thewell.northwell.edu. Love to have you on there. Thank you so much for your time.